Welcome to Bruderheim Town Council meeting. Would someone from council be willing to read the acknowledgement this evening? Councillor Wayne.
Today, I acknowledge that the town of Bruderheim is located on the Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation of Alberta. The town of Bruderheim honors the first peoples of this land. We recognize that we stand upon the land that carries the footsteps of Cree, Métis, and Blackfoot, amongst other nations who have been here for thousands of years. Therefore, the town of Bruderheim has an inherent responsibility to foster healthier relationships with First Peoples and further the calls to action as outlined by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. So is there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, thanks. Looking for a motion then to adopt the agenda as presented. Deputy Mayor.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Judy. Any comments, questions, or concerns with the agenda from council? Haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor, motion, and it's carried. I just wanted to make special mention. Thanks to our CAO Phyllis and administration. Really love the briefing notes and the information package for the council meeting. Thank you very much. So the next on the agenda, we're very fortunate this evening. We have CN Juliana Treffel from CN with us this evening for a presentation, and she has the floor. Thank you for coming. All the way from Toronto, Sherwood Park.
I'm catching on quick. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Houch. Thank you, councillors. It's really a pleasure to be here. I think first, before I get into any type of presentation, I'll just do a quick introduction and then some goals for today, but really wanted to do a high level and then give us an opportunity to chat, ask questions. And if there's anything I can do to help you as neighbors, happy to do that as well. So before the meeting started, I did provide my contact information. That's yours. On that card, there's also an emergency number as well as a public inquiry line number. The public inquiry line number is great for residents or community members who maybe have a question. It is manned with real people, not robots, and they are bilingual. So no matter who's asking questions, we can record those questions. I get reports, so then I start to know as well what types of questions are coming in and if it makes sense to come back and maybe do a special town hall or presentation. So it is really useful information on that line. But just a little bit about me. So I've been with CN for 11 years. I'm working on my 12th year. I've been railroading for 15 years. And I'm a third generation railroader. So my grandfather was a railroader, and then many of my uncles, as well as my mom, also were railroaders. And then came me. I started my career on the railroad as a rail contractor. I worked on a steel gang, so I was actually working boots on the ground. From there, I was recruited by CN and had my first job out of Edson, Alberta, moved from Abbotsford, BC to Edson, Alberta as a assistant track supervisor, so looking after maintenance gangs. Many years later, it feels like, flash in the pan, as it were. I had several other jobs, ended up looking after public works projects for all of Canada and our US division. So I've seen our railroad tracks from Alberta all the way to Louisiana. Very cool opportunity. In January, I took on a new hat, took off my old engineering hat and said, welcome to government relations and public affairs. And the cool part about that is I'm someone who actually knows how the sausage is made. I have lived and ate and done railroading here for 15 years. By no means am I an expert, but I've got a long Rolodex. If it's not me, I can certainly find you the answer. So just know I come from a different land. I am a small town girl. I'm a country mouse at heart. So being in places like the town of Bruderheim just fills me up. I was very excited to come this evening, and thank you, Sherry, for coordinating this. And so with that, I had a little notebook that I left on the top of my car. So I will maybe find it on the way home, but I will be looking at my phone, and that's because I had taken a few notes throughout my afternoon here to just collect that. So it's just me looking at my notes because I don't want to miss anything. But I do want to talk about wildfires today. I want to talk a little bit about technology and what we're doing in the technology and rail safety space, some new announcements out of CN, as well as operations here locally in the town of Bruderheim and what you may have seen over the last couple of years, and then open it up for questions. If there's anything I miss, if we get into a specific situation that we need to unpack, I'll take some notes, we'll follow up. One really neat thing about me is that I'm just here for Alberta. I serve Alberta and the little piece of Northwest Territories. We serve all the way up to Hay River. But it means there's a lot of opportunity for proactive engagement. Historically, this role has been held by somebody that had both BC, Alberta, and Indigenous relations. CN has beefed up their team across the board. So we now have an Indigenous relations manager for Alberta. We have an Indigenous relations manager for British Columbia, as well as a government affairs manager, myself here for Alberta, and my predecessor, Tyler Bannock, who wore all those hats, now out of BC. So just know that seeing me today isn't the only time you're going to see me, which is great. Excited to participate and be your neighbor, and hopefully we can continue this as we move forward. So with that, looking at my phone here so I can get this in order. Wildfires. Alberta has seen an unprecedented year for wildfires, and we don't see that going away. And right there with wildfires is vegetation control. So a couple of things right off the hop is that I understand that there's been some questions about vegetation control. Historically, we've had a specific contractor perform and do our vegetation management from a spraying application perspective. And then we also have a brush cutting perspective. So there's kind of two streams for vegetation management. Our spraying contractor is new this year. So we've hired a new contractor, and we've really challenged them on that Canadian thistle, as that has been a challenge in the past. So they're working through their spray plan for the year. Some of that's already in place and starting to be implemented, and in other spaces, we're still getting ready to dispatch. We have online, and I will share it with your administration here, a vegetation website or a place where you can log in if you have a specific concern. That website, so speaking again to technology and how we've advanced, really feeds into the spray plan. So if we know of specific areas of concern or specific areas of attention, we'll make sure to address those. As much as we want to address all of our route miles across Canada, it's a big undertaking. So certainly getting that feedback helps. If you have any other specific concerns around the brush cutting portion, that's handled by our local track supervisor, and I'm happy to coordinate with you, but they're pretty good about knowing where the Transport Canada sightline requirements are. Now, if we have to go above and beyond, or we have extended right away, let's make sure we're in discussion. So just make sure, and I'll work with administration if there's anything that we need to address in that bucket. But it's been an unprecedented year. So a couple of things just on wildfire management beyond vegetation control, which is something we're not perfect at, I'll be the first to admit, but we're trying to be better, and communication is a great step forward in that space, is also just what we do from a wildfire risk perspective. So all of our work, all of our track work, our track supervisors and their crews, they are all monitoring these hot and dry conditions. So we really plan our work around what that temperature is. And if it exceeds certain thresholds, we pause work, we move work to nights. We also carry fire suppression equipment on all vehicles here in the summertime. So whether that is water cans or extended water cans, but there's always going to be at least water, if not other fire suppression equipment on a truck. Meaning that when we're out there doing work or your residents are witnessing us doing work, we're doing this as safely as possible. We have a fire management plan that we have to report to Transport Canada with, and we have a lot of commitments to our regulator about that. So we're trying to make sure we follow all of those steps, and in doing that, that is one of those pieces. Additionally, we make sure all crews on the ground when a train is going by that they're inspecting that train. So they can report and address because they have that equipment on their vehicle if they see anything. We have electronic inspections that also occur, and those electronic inspections and that data is all reviewed to help as well to prevent or catch before it becomes an incident, any type of equipment, mechanism or dragging equipment even, or something that could cause a spark or flare. So again, we talk about eyes on the ground, we talk about technology. We also have equipment directly on the tracks that also helps with that. We have wayside detectors, as we call them, which I think Councillor Campbell, you might even have some experience with, I feel like, after our chat earlier. But certainly this equipment, it's actually scanning both heat for any hot components of that bearing on that wheel, as well as acoustics. So are we hearing something that doesn't sound right? We have dragging equipment detectors. We've got other pieces of equipment in our fleet that help to make sure that we're running optimally and safely. Fires in Alberta, right now, it's top of mind for everyone. So I felt I just wanted to open with that piece. We have strategically placed water tank cars across our network. We have 20 of them. We also have fire trailers, and then we work very closely with mutual aid, contracted aid, and other fire mitigation companies and contractors for things like some of our timber structures and other components. So we feel like we're well prepared should there be an incident. You may have seen during the wildfires on the Edson subdivision there near Entwistle, Evansburg area, that there was actually a fire train. It's named a firefighting train, I should say. It's named Poseidon. It came from Kamloops, BC, and spent some time in that Entwistle, Evansburg area. It's 2 water cars and a flat deck. It's got 12 sprinkler heads on each side to totally saturate that track bed, as well as 2 water cannons. It's a homegrown invention. It's the first of its kind, and it was its first deployment. So I can't say it's, going to be everywhere. And there's a lot more fires that we're hearing about across the network, across Canada, but it's a start, and it's something else we're thinking of. So again, moving forward, we want to do our part. So we work very closely with fire chiefs. We do a lot of training, coordinating, communicating about works that are going on, and we monitor that fire risk. So first and foremost, as much as it's top of mind for you and your residents, it's also top of mind for us and how we operate and maintain our track. I'm going to then move from wildfires to track technology. So I talked a little bit about that wayside technology, but there's a lot of cool tech. I've worked, as I said, 15 years on the railroad. I have a lot of friends who say, wasn't that just an old piece of steel on steel wheels? And that's all this is. But there's so much advancement in the technology space, and it's really cool. And I get a little nerdy and excited about it. If I would have had video capabilities and more of that tech experience in my wheelhouse, I would be showing you all sorts of pictures in a slideshow here. But ultimately, beyond that, those acoustic testing, those wayside detector testings, we also have detectors for washouts and slides and flooding and high water and all of that tech that physically lives on the track. We also have something called an ATIP car. So it's an automatic track inspection car, and it's part of an automatic track inspection program. And what it is it looks like a box car. It's painted white, and then it almost looks like it's wearing a high-vis vest. So it's got orange and yellow stripes on it, and it has a whole computer inside of it, and it tests under load at track speed, meaning while this train is in motion, it has this car on it with this computer, and it is reporting as it's moving any concerns that it sees. It's got great LiDAR, it's got amazing cameras, it's picking up things that the human eye can't pick up, and reporting in real time, and reporting on a train moving in track speed. Historically, when I started and predecessors before me, you got in your pickup truck with those high rail gear on it, and you had to go at a much slower speed, and trains had to wait for you to go, or you had to find room in between trains. And it wasn't as an efficient process. We still have that. We still have the human eye component, but we've added, so supplemented to the fleet of safety inspections, this ATIP car. We have 10 in our fleet in North America, making it the largest fleet of automatic track inspection cars for all Class 1 railroads. So we're leading the way here. The group that's responsible for this technology actually won an award for it at the Railway Association of Canada, which is really cool. And we're really pushing to see what else we can add. I was talking with the chief about this, and he already is thinking, well, there's still enough room. We can add another computer and another lens for this other, sightline component or something. So it's really cool to see that advancement. The last piece that I think I'll talk about here right now is our automatic inspection portal. So we have several of these portals, and that's where the whole train actually drives through what looks like a little barn. And that barn is full of cameras, and it is inspecting that entire train from wheel to knuckle to bearing. And it picks up, I'm telling you, like a hairline crack on a chain, or it is the smallest little thing you wouldn't expect. And you think, can that be? And then sure enough. So it is a really cool piece of technology as well, inspecting the actual train unit itself. So just a highlight reel, it's certainly not everything. There are many inspections that we still do manually, including our crossings, walking inspections. Transport Canada requires us to walk our curves and to walk our switches and different components at different frequencies, based again on 2 things, tonnage and track speed. So tonnage really meaning how many trains you're seeing, and track speed being how fast that train's going. So based on high speed and a high amount of trains, you're going to see a lot more inspections, but suffice it to say, all of our track is inspected to Transport Canada's requirements. And really, Transport Canada sets the bar. And CN says, well, we don't want to just meet the bar. We want to make sure that we've got some safety, buffer in there. So we're you typically inspecting above and have a tighter threshold, tighter tolerance than what Transport Canada would allow. Really helping to just give us that comfort piece when we're operating. So that's a little bit just on the technology piece that itself.
Just one second, didn't mean to interrupt, but can we adjust the camera so folks can see who's talking?
Oh, I thought I was gonna get away with not being on camera this whole time.
There you go. Thank you.
So then on an operations front, so really bringing it back home to Bruderheim here, we've got two customers primarily that are serviced that would be impacted right here in Bruderheim, and that includes the Synovus and the Sand Track. Over the last couple of years, you would have seen a change in operations for Synovus as they've now got a loop track, which means that we serve in a unit train model, which means the whole train goes into Synovus and a whole loaded train leaves Synovus. No more switching, no more dropping off some cars, occupying potentially crossings or area or track. So that's where it might look like there might be less activity, but it's because it's happening all at once. It's one unit train as opposed to the switching of cars, dropping off cars at different periods of time. So really an improvement and efficiency model. That's where we want to see our customers go, is to a loop track model. The less times you have to touch a rail car, the better off it is for everybody. Just think about that from an efficiency perspective, right? And then the Sand Track is the other customer, and they are on a as needs basis service model. So they don't see unit trains, but every it's a weekly service, and for however many cars they need, whether it's 1, 2, 3 or more, based on economy drivers, we'll be dropping off cars for them. So kind of the two main customers that you see right now here locally. There's also the Alberta Midland Rail Terminal, which is more Lamont County, but again, that one I don't think we would see too many impacts over crossings as well. But a strong moving business. Haven't seen too many changes in the last couple of years on that front. So really operationally, the Synovus loop track over the last couple of years, I think would have been the biggest change you would have seen in operations here locally in terms of how trains are moving through this community. What else can I say about operations here? Yeah, I just wanted to maybe touch on, so we talked a lot about safety from a tech perspective, what CN does for safety. Now I've talked a little bit about operations, and I wanted to just touch on railway safety around crossings. You may have heard of an incident that occurred here in the last 2 weeks, which is why it's fresh on everyone's minds, potentially, or fresh on mine anyways. The importance of adhering to the warning system. So the warning system at a crossing, if there are flashing lights or gates that have dropped, that means a train is coming. If there are flashing lights and there are no gates, it means a train is coming. And what we had was an incident where a vehicle pulled up to a crossing, the lights were flashing, they were already flashing. We know that from the assessment of the incident. They came to a full stop, saw how far back the train appeared to be, made a judgment call that thought that they could then proceed before that train actually would have arrived at the crossing. That judgment call was inaccurate, as one might expect, because I'm telling you the story here. Nobody was injured, thankfully. No cattle were injured, thankfully, but it could have been a real mess. It was just very lucky that it ended up being the tail end of the trailer itself. So it's a reminder here, though, that and a message that you're going to hear a lot about throughout our relationship is just that importance of we've got to follow those warning signs and follow the rules of the road. Listen to that signage. Crossing warning systems have come so far from a tech perspective. When they are actually flashing, it's giving you the least amount of warning required that you can safely stop and make that decision. It's not here for 30 minutes flashing so that you can decide then to negotiate with whether or not you want to go. So because it's so tight with that time, stopping and then making that judgment call, you're likely not going to win. And we're just very lucky in this scenario. It hurts my heart. I came from that land of looking after all of our crossings in North America, and it hurts my heart every time I hear one of these stories because you made the right decision and then you got tempted by that human factor that we're all invincible. And we're just lucky we're not talking about something more serious. With that in mind, Rail Safety Week comes up in the fall. I'm sure year over year, we've reached out to you about a Rail Safety Week proclamation. I would love to partner with you again on that. You're going to start to see some literature come out throughout the summer about what that looks like. But really driving that message home because this was a near miss, but we don't want to have an incident here. And then just to wrap up, a couple of things that you might have seen in the media, and then I'm going to turn it over for questions. So on the sustainability front, we talk a lot about safety. Safety is a core value at CN. But right behind that, and as we move forward, whether it's speaking on climate change or just sustainability as a whole, it's become a really important part of our business. Moving freight by rail, notably, is a lot nicer for the environment than moving it by truck, tractor trailer on the highway. And one of the things that we've created is our My Emissions calculator. We've had it for over a dozen years, but we've revamped it and rebranded it so everyone knows about it again. We were kind of ahead of our time, and I think it kind of fell into the back of our toolkit. So we've republished it as the My Emissions calculator, and it allows our customers to actually show how many emissions, GHG emissions, they're saving by shipping by rail. That's really cool moving forward. It also shows them what they could potentially be saving from what they're trucking. So there's another opportunity there. You may have also heard about our partnership with UP and GXMT, Falcon Premium Intermodal Service. It doesn't impact here locally, but it's a very exciting service for us to get our goods to Mexico. There is another railroad out there you might have heard of that joined with KCS, and they get to Mexico. Well, we can get there a little bit faster with our new partnership. So that is a very exciting message that's out there. And then we also created an app this year. It was launched this year, and it's called My CN1 Mobile. And it allows our customers right off their phone in real time to see where their rail cars are and being able to really start to coordinate. We're one cog in the wheel of what is the big supply chain. We're not responsible for how many cars a customer orders or how many, how a port is actually unloading that grain in Vancouver, but we want to do our part. And the more transparent we can be in all of these pieces and helping our customers with that transparency is really what's led us to having an app like this. You can start to see where your cars are, you know what's going on, but we're not the only piece, right? We're just that middle piece, that convoy between both the customer and getting it to port or to destination. So a little bit on the media front in what we've announced recently, but really opening it up for questions here now, if there's anything.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you very much, Julianne. I just wanted to say thank you, because usually we're dealing with somebody in Ottawa or Calgary or BC, and now we got someone right close by that knows the CN system from, like you said, from boots to computer, and that's just awesome. Thank you very much. So does anybody have any questions? Councillor George.
You related to all the safety technology that we have. I've been on the CN years back, and I know some of that technology. But I'm going to bring a question up to you that you didn't address. TDG. Monitoring. What have you got for monitoring the transportation of dangerous goods through our town or through any town down any railroad track? It's fine and dandy to inspect our equipment and stuff like that, but the commodity that it's hauling is what is the biggest concern to all communities.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, what has CN got to monitor that there before that commodity leaves the customer and hits our tracks that's going through the towns and off to the ports that it's being offloaded to? I'm going to take ammonia, propane, acids, all them good things. I know there's a checklist that every employee, customer has to adhere to, but what does CN do themselves?
Sure. No, thank you. And dangerous goods are certainly part of what we move, where nobody's denying that. I mean, we need dangerous goods for everything from the plastics to the fuel that we use to heat our homes, to drive our cars. So that is certainly an inherent part of the business. And we are certainly doing everything we can to be as safe as possible when we move that, right from the cars that are used. So whether that car is inspected both at the customer site, but also in origin in one of our marshalling yards, the type of car per commodity is really important. And not every black tank car that you see out there is full of something dangerous. Really important to look at those placards. So just first and foremost, there's a lot of black tank cars out there, and maybe not so much here in Alberta, that even are full of liquid sugar for the Coca-Cola plant down in Louisiana, for example. And it fired folks up down there as an example. But they are not dangerous. It's liquid sugar. I mean, that might be dangerous for our health, but I'll leave that aside for now. From an actual perspective though, and it's a really important question, Protective Directive 36 is something that Transport Canada came out with that requires CN to identify the products that are moving and what those products are. In Alberta alone, 9.2% of everything we move would be considered a dangerous good product. That's a small amount of what we move, first and foremost. How we move it and how safely we move it, we are at 99.99% that every single one of those dangerous goods cars gets to destination. So I want to speak to, and I want to underscore that we are in the business of moving dangerous goods safely. And we've done it for a long time, and we have a record to back that up. From a dangerous goods perspective as well, we have something called Ask Rail. It's another app. Your fire chief would have access to this. This app allows fire chiefs the ability, should there have been an incident, or they are curious about a car, whether it has a leak of any kind or otherwise, they would be able to put that car number into what is called Ask Rail app, and it would tell them exactly what the commodity is in there, if it's loaded, if it's residual, or if it's empty. That is another piece or another tool in that toolkit when it comes to dangerous goods. When we're talking about the training itself, we have hundreds of thousands of hours that we've spent with our dangerous goods officers and our firefighters locally to train them on we have a whole, it's like a whole school on wheels. It's this one dangerous goods car that has every single valve, every piece of equipment. And I'll leave it here with us today. I would be happy to connect Shiva, our dangerous goods officer for Alberta, with your fire department, if that hasn't already happened, and make sure that we have refresher training. That would be an excellent opportunity to link up. But we work closely with our partners. We work closely with our partners at a customer level and what they're doing, as well as when that train leaves the customer, when it's in our marshaling yards, and when it's going down our track. So there is another piece to this as well. Certain trains that carry certain dangerous goods may have speed restrictions on them, may require additional inspections en route. We adhere to that and follow that because we are regulated by Transport Canada to do so, and because we want to make sure we're moving this stuff safely. So wholeheartedly committed to that, and I appreciate the question. Thank you, Councillor Kemp.
Thanks for the question,
One
Councillor
other
George. We
question.
have another question.
You mentioned sensory detectors. Where is the closest one in Bruderheim here?
I'm probably going to have to get back to you on that. As much as I've seen a lot of track, I don't have it all memorized, but I can certainly take that away.
Because we have a lot of dangerous goods going through here. We have a lot of car movement. And with my experience, I've seen things happen that even the most advanced technology cannot prevent. But I do appreciate your presentation. I appreciate your knowledge. I think you have very good knowledge of the track and its components. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor George. Any other questions from council for Julianne? Deputy Mayor Judy.
So I'm really interested in your equipment that helps with fires. So when you were doing the fires that were happening over there, is that basically what you were doing, is saving the track all the way along and making room for them? Or did you bring in outside resources to help on the inside?
Yeah, so the fire itself doesn't typically live on a right of way. We don't have a lot of fuel for it, right? Between the ballast rock and even concrete ties in that particular area. So the fire had jumped the track there, and we brought in Poseidon, that train, to really help protect the school in Wildwood, and then to watch the hot spots that were almost off right away, but more into that bush. And so a lot of that work was coordinated directly with the fire chief. The fire chief would tell us where to go. We were working with Emergency Operations Center. We had a person stationed in those scenarios in every emergency operations center that was communicating directly with our RTCs, or rail traffic controllers, that actually control how these trains move, the speed, and also when they get the green light to go. And we were having those folks work directly with the chiefs then to coordinate, okay, we've got a crew here. We all know, we heard it all over the news, and almost every day there was limited resources on the ground. And what this allowed them to do was take resources and move them to other priority areas and allow us to focus on hotspots we could reach from the track. So we became a supplemental. But again, I want to caution, we have one of these. It's a big province, let alone a big country. And so I'm not saying that it's going to be available everywhere all the time, but it's a good pilot project. We saw some success. And so I'm certainly reporting to anyone who will listen senior to me that this is a good one to start saving some money for another one on. Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. Anybody else, any questions? Councillor Wayne, then Councillor George.
Just something I've noticed in the last little while, and I think Mayor Hogan and I were talking about it. The speed of trains coming into towns, like especially here, seems like they've kind of slowed down a bit. Is that because of what they're carrying, or is that a speed they're supposed to be going through town? Is that, how does that? Just curious.
Yeah, so speed, thank you for the question, Councillor Wayne. Speed itself is determined by class of track, or what Transport Canada allows for a specific track configuration. So that could be curves that could prohibit speed. It could also be how that train is moving to the next switch. So that's when we have two pieces of track splitting from each other. It could also be how heavy that train is to get going based on proximity of where that product is leaving from. So we have to think about where our sites are. Are they empty? Are they full? I don't, off the top of my head here, have that known as to the track speed, but I can certainly follow up. That's public information for me to share. And I'm not aware of, I spoke with our operations folks last week in preparation for this, of any changes in track speed. I did mention that there were key trains, some trains that are required to operate slower, and I can follow up to say if that's the reason we might be seeing a variation in speed. It could be just the efficiency of what's being moved to, and that we're speeding up out of town, right? So there's also the fuel piece to all of this as well. Sometimes as much as we can hit that max speed, sometimes the throttle down is actually more fuel efficient depending on what traffic is lined up ahead. I know, and I'll have to correct myself here a little bit following, but I am aware that we've also put some CTC, or what we call signalized track, on the Vegreville sub, which is what operates through here. And so depending on those advanced signals, they may also be already being told to slow down based on getting to Scotford or into Walker Yard in Edmonton. Yeah.
More question?
Go ahead, Councillor.
Who is responsible? Is it the municipality, or is it would be CN or others for interference of trees blocking view of the track? So if you come up to a stop sign at a track, it's not, there's no arms, there's no lights, but it's a stop sign, but you got to pull right up to that track to look to see. So whose responsibility is that? Is that a CN or is that a municipality?
So safety at crossings is a shared responsibility.
Okay.
So I'm going to say both of us together should be monitoring sight lines. Both of us are regulated by Transport Canada to maintain sight lines. Certainly CN, as the railway expert, performing inspections regularly, should be measuring these sight lines. However, there is nothing stopping a municipality from coordinating those inspections or also participating in those inspections with CN. There are two components to sight lines, especially when we get into a crossing. It's that approach sight line. So it could be on that roadway itself, which then may be with the road authority, or it could be down the railway right of way, in which case naturally that would be within the railway's jurisdiction. So that's where it really becomes a shared partnership. In 2014, Transport Canada issued the grade crossing regulations. They changed the game for responsibility around who's responsible for what at crossings, and what it really underscored, if you read between all the legalese in there, it's that we need to work together. We need to share information and we need to work together. So if there's a concern specifically, please share with admin and I'd be glad to take that up.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor George.
Just a little bit of information. The town of Bruderheim and CN co-partnering together. A great example of that is our park up by the railroad. I just wanted to bring that up, and I thank CN for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor George. Anybody else have any questions for Julian? I got a couple that I wanted to just touch on. So at rail crossings, there's usually a number posted. What is that number actually for? Is it just for emergencies, or what? For the folks listening online,
Sure.
what does that number do?
Yeah, that number is for emergencies. It's also the number on the bottom of my business card. That's the emergency number, the 1-800 number. It's one and the same. That number is there and it's regulated to be there at every public crossing. It has an identifier, so it'll have a sub and mile. So that is the railroad's equivalent to an address for that location. And it'll also have that emergency number. You call that number, it's going to dispatch you to our CN police. Our CN police work directly with our rail traffic controllers. So should there have been a train in proximity and say, for instance, you're stuck on the crossing, and it can be a person is stuck, has fallen down and hurt themselves. It could be a wheelchair. It could be a vehicle. You call that number, they'll dispatch to the trains to make sure that everyone can stop safely and we can avoid a greater incident, for example. It is not to complain about spilling your coffee when you drove over that crossing. It is very much an incident of great concern that would require a train to be stopped.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor Judy.
So what about, and I can't remember it happening lately. So I think Cenovus's circle train thing down there has really accomplished a lot. But what happens when the trains are too long? Like how long are they allowed to block a crossing when they're stopped? And what happens if they're too long, and what can we do about it?
No, it's a really great question. And thank you, Deputy Mayor Judy. blocked crossings. So I just want to be really clear. There's a difference between an occupied crossing, meaning a train is moving, even if it's inching through, it's moving. And that is considered an occupied crossing. A blocked crossing by Transport Canada or the Canadian Transportation Agency's rules are when a train is physically stopped and there is a vehicle waiting, the clock starts. No vehicle waiting and you observe it from your living room window, it's still not a blocked crossing. But if there's a vehicle waiting, the clock starts. That clock starts and we have 5 minutes to clear that crossing by law. If we don't clear that crossing and it becomes a problem of any kind, please work with administration, let me know. Clearly, there are all sorts of operational reasons why it might have happened. We typically want to move trains. First and foremost, we make money when trains are moving, not when they're stopped. So it is not in our best interest to have trains stopped. And certainly as good neighbors, we certainly don't want them stopped over crossings. Our rail traffic controllers have access to all public crossings on the line, and they are aware of when a crossing is blocked. So they're doing their best to move that train as soon as possible as well. But things happen. We're not perfect. The environment's not perfect. It can be everything from an incident that is out of our control to something entirely in our control, like just a shortening up would have helped, or moving forward one car could have helped. So certainly reach out if those are issues. There's no maximum length that we can be in terms of length of train. However, there comes to be that sustainability piece where we want to make sure we're the most efficient we can be. So we might not run the longest trains to test the limits if it's going to mean we're going to burn more fuel, right? We're going to run an efficient model of train, but that train has gotten longer over the years. I would say we've leveled out over the last, since my time in this business anyways, but we've certainly seen them grow from years previous. We had a lot of siding extensions that spoke volumes to it. Our sidings used to be about 8,000 feet. That's how long trains were. Now we have 16,000 foot sidings. Things have certainly changed. But in that model, a stop train isn't making CN any money. It's not making a customer any money. It's not our business model. So we're not doing it to annoy you. We're going to do our best to remove it when we can. And if we run into issues, you have two options. Work with admin, certainly on that business card that I gave you, public inquiry line number. It's a great number to call. We log those crossings. And then I have a top 10 list for my province that I can look after in terms of crossings that see more of that call. So, but it's not an emergency. It's not an emergency number. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Deputy Mayor Judy. Anybody else have any questions? I just wanted to gently inquire about seeing on social media, train companies are starting to look at like hydrogen powered or whatever alternate fuels for engines. Is that something that CN's pursuing or?
Yeah, no, great question. And thank you, Mayor. We are all in pursuit of the best next thing for clean energy and for clean energy burning. CP has announced a hydrogen testing model. Ultimately, we're looking at electric and an EV model, but we're also right now trying to fill that stopgap. So we're doing a lot of biofuels testing. So we've partnered with some of our fuel partners, and we're looking at finding that blend. So we're fuel blending right now, and we're testing. There's challenges with that. It's really great when we test down south, and then we bring it up here to to the Northern Railway that we are. And we're also looking at it from a perspective of, it might be great that we're blending and it's going to be good for our overall footprint. But if we now have to burn more fuel to pull the heavy trains that we pull out of Alberta, then are we really saving in the end? So there's a lot of math behind it. There's some really great wizards doing all that and all that science in the background for us, but we're in that business. Another piece I'll just say though is between all Class 1 railroads. So whether it's CN, CP, UP, BN, and you might have even seen a CSX unit on a CN track, and you're thinking, well, CSX isn't up here. Of course they're not up here, but we trade power. And that happens naturally when we get into situations like ports or large yards that we're sharing power all the time. So when a winner emerges, whether it's EV, whether it's hydrogen or some alternative we don't know yet, we're all going to be migrating to that model. So rather than all of us trying to do a race for the same type of new power, we're all testing out different models. We're all collaborating as an industry, and the winner is going to find itself here in the next few years. And we have a goal. We have a vision 2045 to be at zero. So that is a big goal. That is a huge goal. I can send you a link for the video we just did with UN 2045 here for CN. We're pretty excited about it, but that means that we're going to find that winner, right? And what that looks like. So.
Thank you. If CN is ever looking for a place to put an electric charging station, And the last thing I wanted to touch on is, we've been graced with, the little kitty train. I don't remember, is it?
Little Obi.
Yeah, I didn't want to say the name just in case I had the wrong company, but, are you the person that we would contact to arrange for little Obi? Sorry. Yeah, I kind of figured, but I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yes,
That's
it's
awesome.
me. The schedule hasn't been officially confirmed, but we have you in the schedule. So short of, something beyond our control, looks like September will be a good time for everybody here in Bruderheim.
That's awesome. I don't know if anybody else has any questions for you, but I think we've missed opportunities in the past when we had a delegation come. Would love to get a picture with you and our council. Can we do that? Is
Absolutely.
council okay with doing that? Take a minute to do that? That'd be awesome. And you can borrow my coat.
Just kidding.
Because like we like to think that we partner with lots of companies, and CN is a big part of business for our communities. You're here every day.
Here, we're going there.
I don't know, wherever in front of the flag.
Jump
out of the way.
You gotta turn them.
Stand behind.
I'm holding it up.
We can't go in front of the flag.
Okay,
I'm not sure which one you want.
we're going this way.
Oh, I don't know how that's gonna look. Okay, Judy, what would you like? Well, that way, or we turn it, because we can't see the flag. Let's turn it. Now get in there. Not like that.
Somebody.
Here, whoops, sorry, Len. Okay, hold it. Maybe on that side.
Here, young guy between two seniors, are you gonna point in?
Yeah, Jordy's buzz, big guys.
Okay, Brady.
Thank you. Thanks for accommodating.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Something for you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate you coming.
You'll have.
Thanks for accommodating that, council. So we're looking for a motion to accept Julianne's presentation as information. Councillor George.
I'll make motion that we accept Julianne's presentation as information.
Thanks for that motion, George. Anyone have any comments, questions, concerns with that motion? Just once again, thanks a lot, Julianne. Hopefully we see you lots. And don't be a stranger. Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And the motion's carried. So we can move on to the proclamations. And like I did with the last council meeting, I'm going to share the wealth with speaking. And the first proclamation is Seniors Week proclamation. There's 6 whereases. And maybe I'll start with Deputy Mayor, and whoever chooses to speak to a whereas, go ahead, and those who don't want to, just go on to the next councillor. So we'll start with the Seniors Week proclamation with Deputy Mayor Judy.
Whereas we recognize that seniors have made and continue to make many contributions to strengthen our province, our towns, our communities, and our daily lives. And
Councillor Dana. Oh, Councillor Len. Councillor Wayne.
Whereas seniors are a vital part of our families, giving generously of their wisdom, experience, and love, and are at the heart of many community programs and charitable organizations that improve the life for those residing in Bruderheim. And
more positive attitude towards aging is creating opportunities for Bruderheim's older adult community. And
Go ahead, Councillor George. Are you gonna?
Back to Judy.
Okay, Deputy Mayor. Oh, no, Councillor Dana wants to go.
A more positive attitude toward aging is creating new opportunities for new seniors. And
back to Deputy Mayor Judy.
whereas
Oh, here it is, it's on the back.
whereas this year's theme is aging is more time to relax, celebrate more time for families, friends, and fun.
And the next Councillor George.
And whereas by generating awareness of our aged-friendly society, Bruderheim residents are encouraged to recognize seniors for their achievements and contributions to our town.
Thank you, Council. And therefore, I, Carl Houck, Mayor of the town of Bruderheim, hereby proclaim June 5th to June 11th, 2023 as Seniors Week in the town of Bruderheim. and I've signed the proclamation. So now we move on to the next proclamation. It's National Indigenous Day proclamation. Hopefully everybody from council has a copy of that. And we can start with Deputy Mayor Judy if you want to read the first whereas.
Whereas the Constitution of Canada recognizes the existing rights of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada and
Councillor Dana,
Whereas in the Constitution of Canada, Aboriginal peoples of Canada include the Indian, Inuit, Métis peoples of Canada
and next Councillor Wayne,
Whereas the Aboriginal peoples of Canada have made and continue to make valuable contributions to Canadian society, and it is considered appropriate that there be in each year a day to mark and celebrate these contributions and to recognize the different cultures of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada and
Councillor Ashley,
Whereas many Aboriginal people celebrate the summer solstice, which has an important symbolism within their cultures.
and Councillor George or.
you know.
Oh, okay, thank you. Therefore, I, Carl Hoke, Mayor of the Town of Bruderheim, hereby proclaim June 21, 2023 as National Indigenous Day in the Town of Bruderheim. And I've signed that off, so thank you. We don't need a motion for accepting these, right? So we can move on to the next page and we need a motion to confirm the May 17th council meeting minutes. Councillor George? Thank you for that motion, Councillor George. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion from council? Haven't heard none. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. And now we move on to council priorities. And we'll start with information requests with Deputy Mayor Judy.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dana,
and nothing at this time.
Councillor Len,
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Wayne,
nothing at this time.
Councillor Ashley,
I just have a question for the What's Up in Bruderheim. That's what we call it. The Bruderheim School was just asking about the dates that it would be held this September, if it would be September 12th. It will be September 12th. Okay. And what time does that usually start?
The event is in coordination with the school, so it'll start at 6:30.
Starts at 6:30?
Yeah, at the school, yeah. And it was at the school's request that we set the date.
Okay, he just wanted me to confirm
Yeah,
yesterday. in the meeting.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
thank you for that question. Any other questions, Councillor Ashley? Councillor George?
Nothing at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. And now we're on to program requests. Councillor George,
Nothing at this time. Thanks.
Councillor Ashley,
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Wayne,
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Len,
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Dana,
I don't know if this is the right place to say it, but just some events that are going on in town.
go ahead.
So there is a market this weekend at the Egg Society is putting on a market at the, it's not canceled. It's canceled?
There's a funeral this weekend.
Okay, it's canceled.
Yeah.
Anyways, and the other thing is large item pickup is happening on this Friday. And then kick it to the curb is also happening. It's going on right now. So just put anything you don't need to the curb.
Great, thanks for that reminder, Councillor Dana. Deputy Mayor Judy?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Just one program request that I might have is the MSA was looking at maybe doing a ball tournament, hockey this year. Is that happening or do we know?
Sorry, I didn't hear the request.
Sorry.
So we had talked about the ball hockey tournament. And I was just wondering, do we know if that is going to be happening this year?
I know that the Alcohol Wilds is looking at doing it and they were meeting and I will check in with them and see if they're going to go forward because we also talked about doing something in the fall. And so I'm not sure if they're going to do it before fall or if they're going to include it in the fall.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering. Thank you, Councillor Dana.
Talking about BMSA, so they are starting the scooter and skateboard lessons. Starting July 4th. There is stuff shared on social media for it. It's a 6-week pilot program. So yeah, starting July 4th. And you could call or their email, all the information's on the posters shared on social media. So, and it's $60 for 6 lessons.
Great, thanks very much, Councillor Dana. Is there any other information program requests? If not, we can move on to the next item. 8.1, request for a reduction in utilities.
On May 26, 2023, administration received a call from a property owner asking for a reduction in the March utility bill. A review of circumstances was undertaken and the following was identified. There was a water leak in the property in March. Consumption in March was 233.7 cubic meters and previous readings showed very little usage. On March 27th, the meter read was disconnected and remains disconnected at this time. We spoke with the property owner and advised that there's nothing in the utility bylaw that would allow for the CAO to provide for a reduction and would need to come to council for decision. Bylaw 1022, the utility bylaw states in section 2.1.6, an owner shall be responsible for the installation, repair, and maintenance of all items owned by the owner. And the owners had not requested that the meter be tested, and therefore administration believes that meter to be in proper working order. The property owners are seniors and the billing for the consumption is $733.82 for water and $362.24 for sewer. And we, the town of Bruderheim, were invoiced by the Water Commission for those cubic meters as well, and we've had to pay for it.
Thank you for that. Just an inquiry for information purposes for council. Do we monitor like when there's excess use happening? That maybe Public Works would know that something's going on, or
We actually would not know anything's going on until we actually did the water meter reads at utility times, and then those are identified.
okay, so they wouldn't have prior knowledge.
No, sir.
Okay, Councillor George.
What was the length of time from the time this meter leak occurred to the time that was found? And was the residence occupied at the time?
No, the residence wasn't occupied. So there is an insurance requirement that says your property must be checked every 3 days. And as soon as we were notified, our guys went and shut the water service off.
So we do not know the exact length of time.
No, sir.
Another question. Was there damage extensively or solely to the property involved, or was there damage to our infrastructure as well?
Their property only, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wayne has a question.
These numbers here, 733.82 and 362.24, is that the cubic meters or is that dollar amount?
Dollar amount, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. So we need to have a discussion and come to making a motion on what we are going to do with this. Does anyone else from council have any thoughts, questions? Councillor Lennon.
Is this an issue with the homeowner? Is that their responsibility? Were they negligent in any way? Or is there any negligence by the town? I want a very clear direction. Who's responsible?
This property owner's responsibility, sir.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, that's why I was asking that question. If our Public Works had any knowledge if this was happening, then we could have shut it down sooner, but we didn't have it. So now we're going to be looking for a motion from council. I think you have a question, Deputy Mayor?
I'm listening and I'm thinking it's been answered, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So we don't know when it started. We just know how long it accumulated
Sometime
this much.
between meter reads and the end of February and March 27th when the property owner reported.
So we put in this new SCADA system that is supposed to be able to, and I know this for the fact. I had a running toilet and I got a phone call and said, Judy, you've got water running consistently. What's going on? So does this now saying that, is it a time period that would have come up? Because I know we can drive around and if we've got water lossage happening for under the streets or whatever, we should be able to pick it up and the boys can go figure it out. So that's my question.
I'm going to ask Dennis to answer that question, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's why I asked that question, and it'd be good if Dennis could answer.
Good evening, Council. So in this particular case, this actually happened over a duration of 3 days. It started happening on a Friday night and we caught it Monday morning. Where we can't pick up specific water meters because we don't have the capabilities of doing data loggers, what Deputy Mayor Judy has brought up is we can see a flow increase with our SCADA system. So in this case, we saw a flow increase on that Friday night when we came to work Monday morning, because as you know, we don't monitor per se on the weekend, but we did notice it. We did a set of what we call a ghost set of readings. So we go out, we do a set of readings on the town without creating the billing system active. And we found that that was the place that was using the most water. We got there, observed, and it appeared to be coming from inside the home after the meter, which is why we were able to know how many cubic meters were lost. So I don't know the cause. If the furnace went out, I never did know that, but it did happen over a duration of 3 days.
So thanks for that, Public Works Foreman Dennis. Just question. So when on the Monday rolled around, then the water got shut off then, or?
That is correct. We isolated it at the CC. We weren't privy to be able to get underneath the trailer, and that's about the extent of it. We shut it down at the street.
Okay, so if we didn't have that capability, it would have been much more water gone down the drain, so to speak. Until
And
the next
I can
meeting.
remember about 5 or 6 years ago, before we put all this in place, we had a lot. I think council remembers we had some pretty serious incidents where we lost a lot of water. So this was a good catch. Yeah, it's just one of those things that the water was used.
Thanks for that. Deputy Mayor Judy has a question.
So are people living in this property? Or is it like kind of an abandoned property? Because now you haven't hooked the water back up.
I don't think I think it's a vacant property.
I believe it is vacant. I would concur with Phyllis. It's definitely vacant at this time.
Any others thoughts on this and motion coming forward? Councillor Wayne and Councillor George.
I was just going to make a motion if George has some more comments.
You have turn on your mic, please, George.
I'm looking at the consumption dollars wise. How many cubic meters would that roughly be?
233.7.
133.7. And I look at the meter of the sewer consumption.
The sewer consumption is, I believe, 37.3% of the water consumption.
Yeah, thank you for that, CAO Phyllis.
Uh,
What are you wrestling with?
I'm going to make
George?
a recommendation.
Okay. Hearing no other voices, Councillor Wayne, you are prepared to make a motion?
Yep. I mean, a motion to maintain bylaw 10-2022 2.1.6. An owner shall be responsible for the installation, inspection, repair, and maintenance of all items owned by the owner, and the utility bill will remain as sent in March.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Wayne. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Councillor George.
Now getting back to this. I feel that the owner is obligated to pay the water consumption. But I feel that we should maybe be lenient, that we dismiss the sewer consumption. Because we haven't lost money on the sewer consumption, other than pumping a little extra water.
Okay, thanks, Councillor George. Councillor Dana.
So I would understand if it was something that was caused by us, but anything past meter in the house is the homeowner. It's not our fault that if the shut off didn't work or anything like that. And we did a good part of going and shutting it off because we noticed the consumption. So I 100% agree with the motion that you made, Wayne.
Technically, it's downstream of the curb block that's in the property and not the water meter. So where the valve is that they shut off, downstream of that going into the house, that's the owner's responsibility. But what I was going to say is if those folks that are paying that bill have an issue with paying on time or need help with that, is there any opportunity for them to try to make payments or to help them out to be able to get past that? Or what would happen in that case?
Yes, sir. I would work with them to make a payment plan. We've done that with other businesses and folks, so we would do the same in this instant.
Okay, thanks. It wouldn't automatically get stuck on your tax bill or anything like that if they come forward to make a plan with you. Are we going to offer that opportunity to them?
Yes, sir, I will call them tomorrow with council's decision, and then I will work forward from there.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Judy.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Wayne. As a homeowner, it's your responsibility to look after your property. And if you're not looking after it, and you're not living in it, then you should turn your water off when you leave home. Like, that's kind of the way it goes. And I know in other towns it's happened, and it's your responsibility. It's your property. Look after it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Judy. Councillor George.
What is the actual loss to the town? This is something I have to deal with. What have we actually lost? When I look at the sewer metering, which is 50% of the water consumption, I don't think we spent $362.24 worth of pumping to get rid of this sewer.
I would say that our water is on a total cost recovery system, so I would say $733.24.
So
82 cents.
that being said, we've only lost $733.82, maybe at $20 per power for pumping. I believe we should only charge, given the circumstances, what we have actually lost.
Okay, thank you, Councillor George. Is there any other discussion on this motion? Haven't heard none. Call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you. That was great discussion. Do we need a comfort break or we're good? Okay, so we can move on now to business license 8.2.
So land use bylaw 33-2015 and subsequent amendments include home occupations, major and minor, as requiring a development permit. Once the development permit is approved, a business license at a cost of $30 is required as set out in the business license bylaw. Contractors working on town projects are also required to have a business license. The business license is renewed annually in January. Since January 2023, we issued 47 business licenses, most of which are renewals. The annual review of licensing assists planning and development staff with ensuring that any change of use of properties is captured and processed accordingly as set out in various bylaws. Administration has received inquiries for a prorated cost for a business license for new registrants. That's Sherry's report, sir.
Thank you for that. So all of council has read the information background that was supplied. We are going to need to come to agreement on a motion on this. Would someone be willing to make a motion, or do we have more questions? Deputy Mayor?
So basically what they're asking for is if they come in halfway through the year, they only want to pay half. Yeah, that's what I.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay, yeah, it's the question that Councillor Land had, it's under recommendation. What the potential motion could be. So Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I recommend that town council request administration to incorporate July 1st cost of $15 is for businesses license for new registrants in the revision of the business license bylaw that will be brought to council for consideration.
Thank you for that motion, Councillor Len, and then Councillor George.
Well, I think it should stay consistent. $30 is $30. It's not a lot of money. But when the businesses come into our community, whatever they are, plumbers, electricians, or builders, they do make their money and make it back very quickly. So I don't think we should give them $15 of our tax dollars for that. It's really, they don't give the homeowner a break. And I'm just telling you this right now that we have to stay consistent. If it's $30, it's $30. If it's December 1st or January 1st, that's the way it is. You want to do business in our town, that's the cost.
Thank you for that, Councillor Len, Councillor George, and then Councillor Wayne. Did you have your hand up? And then
I have,
Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Dana.
I have to look at it. This is a cost recovery. And I think it costs us more in time than $15 to issue these permits if we do the investigations properly. And I have to agree with Councillor Filardo, which I don't often. But yes, let's stay consistent with the $30. This pays for the time taken for issuing these.
Thank you for that, Councillor George, and click the button, and then Councillor Wayne.
I would go along with the motion that it's made. The reason of, like Len said, was that these bigger companies, they make their money back. But Bruderheim, there's a lot of home-based businesses, and it's a one-time thing. Your first time applying for a license, if it's July 1st for half year, I'm okay with the $15. But if it's a company that's, or a business has been around for years, maybe it needs to be reworded. Well, it's not reworded. It says here for new registrants only, so I would be okay with that.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wayne, and Deputy Mayor Judy, and then Councillor Dana.
So I know the talk has been around with different municipalities, and it kind of comes back through the economic development and that type of thing. They really are trying to figure out if we could even go to no money for licenses, right? Like for business licenses, because we're all kind of like all in the same area. So I know they're trying to put something together on it. I've also talked to Sherry about this, and of course she said that'll never work because of all the different rules and how they affect the land use bylaw and all that kind of stuff. But so there's a different stuff about there, what that business license really means. And you're right, we have a lot of those home-based businesses, and the $15 wouldn't hurt. The big guys probably won't know the difference because they're not coming in July 1st to pay the $15. They're coming in to do the business. It's our home-based businesses I think we got to look after.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Dana.
So I know that there are a few home-based businesses in town that have not gotten their licenses. So what's to say that they don't just, when this might be, I may be a Debbie Downer on it, but what's to say they're not going to wait a half year and then decide to register, even though they've been running, right? You know what I mean? I would keep it at the $30 and pay the $30. Like, if that makes any sense, what I said.
Thanks, Councillor Dana. Councillor Wayne.
But this is just for new businesses, right? It's not a repetitive. So if you had a business in here for 3 years and you, fourth year, you wait till the July 1st, you're not going to get that $15 deal. You're getting $30.
Yeah.
So it's for first time new businesses only is the way that this is worded, right?
And administration concurs, yeah. Councillor George, and then we'll be looking to head this off here pretty soon.
When you issue a new license, how much investigation is done into what constitutes you giving that new license out? I'm not going to relate to anything that's happened within our town, but sometimes we get businesses in town that just don't match our needs or the people that they serve their needs. So I was wanting to know what we really put into issuing these licenses. Is it just Mr. Joe Blow come in and say, well, I'm going to be a roofer in Bruderheim, and we say, oh yeah, let's go to it. We give him a license and away he goes. But do we look into see what he has for liabilities and all that good stuff too, as far as issuing these licenses? Just a question.
I would think that would be on the customer to ask those questions, but I'll let the CIO Phyllis speak to that.
So it would be my opinion that if someone comes in and applies for a business license, as long as they adhere to all the requirements of land use bylaw, we would issue it.
What if this person hasn't got any land use? He just comes in and he's going to do some work and he's gone.
The section of the land use bylaw is where business licenses are covered. You could take it out of the land use bylaw and just have it under business license bylaw. But ours here in Bruderheim is contained within the land use bylaw.
I think we're tangling up two different things. So we're just talking about the business license cost at the moment. We're not looking at the requirements that the business is supposed to provide to the town, because there is no requirements other than complying to the business, to the town bylaw.
I am just, Mayor Hawk, I am just addressing this issue as to protect the residents within our community.
Yep, buyer beware, exactly. Any other questions from council, deputy mayor?
Yeah, the business license is not designed to protect the residents. All it's designed is so that that person that comes into our town has a right to do business. As a homeowner, it's your responsibility to see if they have errors and emissions and insurance and WCB and whatever else you want to do to make sure that they're safe and accurate. And it's interesting to know, just for your information, that I can go in anywhere and buy myself and say I'm a general contractor. I do not have to have a ticket. I do not have to have anything. So buyer beware, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you for that. I do have one question. So the money that comes in from business licenses, is that a part of the town budget every year?
Yes, sir, we put it in under the revenue stream.
Okay. And we're not going to slice this up. Oh, somebody who now wants to start a new business in October and they want the prorated, no.
No, I think our intention right now is that if you apply or renew your license between January and July, you will pay $30. If you are a new business with a new application after July 1st, you will pay $15. If you're just late renewing, you're paying $30.
Okay, thank you. And I think the issue of folks having a business but not getting a license is a topic for another day. So hearing no more questions, call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? And the motion is not carried. Thank you.
I'll make a motion now. They accepted this stuff as information.
I'm sorry, we had a motion already from no, Councillor Wayne made the motion, so we don't need a motion, Councillor Lynn.
That was one of the recommendations,
was one
but
of
you
the
did make
recommendations. Yeah.
one of the options, sir.
Yeah, there was several options there, Councillor Lynn. So we can move on to the next item in the agenda and flipping back to that page. We are on 8.3 Town of Bruderheim Library Board appointments.
So administration has received a call from Ken Allen, the Library Legislative Advisor, Public Library Services Branch, Government of Alberta on May 18th, 2023. The call was to verify exact dates for appointments to the Town of Bruderheim Library Board as a result of an audit that the government is undertaking on libraries within Alberta. Discussion focused on appointments that were more than 3 years in time without a special resolution of council to allow the extension and the many names on documents referencing the library. It's important that the library board appointment motions include a term end date for board members within a day, month, and year. The library is automatically a corporation when it is formed by municipal bylaw, as is stated in section 3.4 of the Libraries Act. This means that the board has various corporate powers and responsibilities, including the powers to hire staff, enter into contracts, and both sue and be sued. Because of these responsibilities, it's very important that it's clear who is responsible for these corporate duties and when. If board members are not clearly and properly appointed by council, it's possible that a board member could be held individually liable in a lawsuit. The appointment process for town councillors is the same as the process for anyone else. They can also be appointed for a term up to 3 years. Most councillors only get appointed for a term of 1 year, and council needs to pass a special motion approved by at least 2/3 of council each time after a councillor is appointed for more than 3 terms in a row. Administration is arranging for Ken Allen to come out and provide training to the members of the Bruderheim Library Board and any members of council and administration that would like to attend. Sherry has put forth a recommendation that council appoint the following individuals for the library board for specified terms.
Thank you for that preamble, much appreciated. So we're looking for questions, comments, where we get going, Deputy Mayor. It's up to council, whatever.
So just clarify. So every October they come back to us and we make a motion to put them on the library board.
Yes.
So kind of what this is, I'm not sure, kind of. Am I understanding right? This is what it's saying. If they're in there for longer than 3 years, we have to do something different, make a special resolution to have them in by the end of October every year. Is that what that's saying?
Yes.
I just want to clarify one more thing. The other thing is by the Library Act, it has to have a term specific end date. So in discussion with the government, we decided that council does those appointments at the organizational meeting of council. So we would put the end dates as that date because then you're reappointing library board members. Part of the training is that they will be requiring the library board to carry a spreadsheet that shows exactly when library board members are appointed. And that has to come to the council meeting at every organizational meeting. So we know, for example, when Wayne was first appointed, we know exactly when their end date is, because otherwise we don't know when they've met that threshold where we have to do something different.
And it will also protect them because they may not be on the library board anymore, but it's not recorded anywhere. So-
That's
and
right.
it's-
Like
and
we
if you happen
appointed
that
these
they-
people, but we
they
didn't
get-
have an expiry date.
Right, okay. Councillor Wayne?
So every 3 years or up to 3 years, what if they're in different positions on the board? Does that matter as long as they're on the board? Okay,
Just on the board. So we could you could be appointed for a term for 2 years or 3 years, and then you can have or board member continuity. So your term might expire 2023, another board members might be 2024, and another might be 2025. So you can stagger the appointments, and I'm sure when they come back, we'll be looking at those things as well.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Councillor Wayne. Any other questions, concerns? Someone willing to make a motion here? Councillor George?
I'll make a motion that town council appoint the following individuals to the town of Bruderheim Library Board for the specific terms as addressed.
Yeah, we don't need to read all the names, do we?
No, sir, it's a public agenda, so it's
Okay,
published.
perfect. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Hearing none, call for a vote then. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Now we can move on to 8.4 Fort Sask RCMP quarterly update. Has everyone had a chance to read that update? If we did have questions, would we convey them to you and then you pass them on to the RCMP?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone have any questions that they want to convey to the RCMP on this report? No, not hearing any. We need a motion to accept this information. Councillor Dana,
I motion that town council accepts these reports as information.
thanks for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Councillor George has his hand up.
Looking at the options here, that the town council accepts the report of information. The town council accepts these reports as information and directs administration to set up a meeting date for Inspector Barry LaRock to come to council to clarify information. Another motion as presented by council. I think this is a little bit, it's asking if we want to accept this or do we want previous reports and cutting out the face-to-face. I think we should be good. If we're going to do anything, we should be going with option 2.
Councillor Dana,
I went with option 1 because nobody had any questions, so I just assumed there was no point of bringing them in for a meeting.
thank you. Any other comments, questions, or concerns with the motion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? And the motion's carried. Thank you. And
Does this cancel any requests from RCMP to come?
No, sir.
So that-
This is their quarterly report. We're presenting it. If you wanted to meet with them, we would arrange that.
Okay, thanks a lot for clarification. It wasn't black and white.
So we've presented with you in all of our requests for decisions, multiple options for council to
Yeah.
consider. These are the options we think that might come up that you might want to make motions on. And following that, we have a recommendation, our recommended motion.
Thank you.
thank you, Councillor George. So the next up is the 8.5 dog park.
So in April 2023, administration was tasked with reaching out to the groups of volunteers working on having a dog park, an off-leash park for the town. We reached out, Sherry reached out, and committee is no longer working on this initiative is the information we got. So I did some high-level research, reached out to some of my CAO network and said, so what are you doing? The initial cost could be between $10,000 and $40,000 to set it up. Advice is given approximately $10,000 for 500 linear feet of 48-inch chain link installed. The town of Peterborough estimates annual operational expenses of $16,000 per acre and has water, daily pickup, and weekly maintenance. The town of Redcliffe estimates annual operation of $10,000 per acre and has water and weekly maintenance. The town of Delburn does not separate operational costs and includes in annual parks and recreation budget, does not have water and annual cleaning. The users do a great job of keeping everything clean. The town of Stellar estimates the cost to be approximately $5,000 per year. They do not have a water source, but maintain a water in a rain barrel that is filled weekly. Spring cleaning takes 2 to 3 full days as users do not clean in the wintertime. Summer is better and town is looking at adding another location. This information is gathered for a simple off-leash park as opposed to an off-leash dog park with obstacles and specific exercising opportunities. The only location that administration could think of was the third ball diamond, but we know that's used for parking in some events. So would require some other work. And we have given you a couple of options for consideration, sir.
Thank you for that, CAO Phyllis. Councillor Lynn.
I'd like to make a motion that we just accept this as information.
Okay, thanks for that motion, Councillor Lynn. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Wayne.
How many dogs are registered every year? Do you know?
We have about 60 dogs registered,
And what does it cost for a dog license?
22 for altered and 32 for non-altered.
And then there's the extra cost for multiple dogs, correct?
$25 for an over limit.
So if this third diamond were to be fenced, what would be the cost for the fence? Is that the 500 linear feet?
Yeah, $10,000 for 500 linear feet.
Okay. If these dog owners are adamant to have one, then I feel that they should be paying for it on their dog license and increase the price of the dog license until it's paid for. But at this time, I'd like to have one, but I think it's the cost of it is fairly steep unless they're willing to pay for it. It's be a hard one to buy.
Thank you, Councillor Wayne. Deputy Mayor Judy.
And evidently it's not that important because they didn't continue to work on it. So evidently not high priority as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's possible, or they just felt that council had given up on the idea. I'm not sure which. Which community out of the list of communities is closest to us in size? Delburn?
Delburn, sir.
Yeah, what is the population of Delburn approximately? Is it about the same?
I think about 1,000.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wayne.
Just it's kind of a question, not so much about this, but in regards to animal or dogs. Do we still update Strathcona County with a list of dog license every year? Okay, thank you.
Councillor George, you had a question?
Given the ball diamond, that's not much area when you really look at it. Say you got, 5 dogs in that area. That's a pretty small area for a dog park. That being said, I have to reiterate with what Wayne has said. We just haven't got $10,000 to throw away on a dog park. And furthermore, for $10,000, you can buy lots of dog leashes and running shoes. But anyway, we'll leave it at that.
Thank you for that, Councillor George. Deputy Mayor Judy.
So being on the other side of this, what type of grants? Have you seen any grants like this type of thing to build dog parks or anything like that?
No, ma'am, I haven't.
That's a good question, Deputy Mayor, that you rose. So I know that there's security issues at the campgrounds slash ag grounds. Would any kind of fence help with that? And maybe there's grants available in that direction?
And I can look into it, but I can't think of any off the top of my head in my recent research.
Okay, yeah, not directing any research. That motion doesn't direct that right now, so. Any other comments, questions, or concerns from council? Okay, call for a vote then. All those in favor of the motion? And the motion is carried. And we move on to the next one, 8.6 signage.
So annually, discussions with Sherry and we put this for you for some guidance. So we receive inquiries from council about signage, replace and new signage and budget allocations. So Sherry has provided an administration on what we are working on right now and what we have in the budget. So we are working on the history of the community hall to be placed inside the facility, similar to the one placed in the Mashmeyer Arena. The park sign placement for the park space at the gazebo. We are doing signage for the new playground at the Bruderheim Agricultural Grounds and signage for the Infinity Center for renters to place their names for visibility. We are also looking at in budget replacement of the walking trail history signage, the electric sign, which we had previous quotes for, and updates to quotes are underway. Quotes for signage that administration gathered in the past 2 years for budget planning and that will be brought forward for 2024. Bruderheim sign placed at the entrance to the Bruderheim corporate limits along the highway where the annex land is. Subdivision signs for Sunset and West Woodlands, sorry. Welcome signage on the west and east side of Bruderheim. The fire hall RRIOC signage and a message board. New sign projects identified as requiring quotes for council consideration for 2024, including signage to advertise local business and a sign for Memorial Community Hall. Recently, administration has been asked if when the Brookside subdivision sign will be replaced. Research indicates that the original sign was installed by the developer as per the development agreement. This agreement does not identify maintenance or upkeep or replacement for the sign. The deterioration of the Brookside sign and the request for other subdivision signs have provided an opportunity for council to determine the path forward in terms of subdivision signage. I have some questions for council to consider and discuss. Does the town of Bruderheim wish to have subdivision signage for all subdivisions? Does replacing the Brookside sign at council town costs set a precedent? Will subdivision signage be required for all future subdivisions? And should that signage have a standard look and feel? When I drive around, I see all the staff Kona rocks and they all have a feel, you know where it comes from. So that kind of a thing, and those be installed by the town. And we've left some administration options for council to consider.
Thank you for that, CIO Phyllis. So discussion or questions or motion?
What would
Councillor
they
Dana?
call mine? Like Old Town? Is that what they would call it?
That would be Old Town, yeah. That's what it's commonly known as, yeah.
That is the real Bruderheim Brothers Home.
As opposed to everybody else's not real Bruderheim.
That's just an add-on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor George. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Someone willing to put forward a motion? Deputy Mayor.
I guess just a question. I know Brookside had a sign and it's gone. What would we do to change that if we weren't going to put signage everywhere else? Because I mean, it's missing some, right? You can see it's missing some.
We would probably remove the sign and either put it back to grass, or if it was Sherry, she would probably put a flower bed there.
Yeah.
Well, there is a flower bed, but more what I'm like, the big wood pieces that are there to hold it, that would come down and just leave the flower bed type thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and then leave the concrete, put flowers on it. Yep. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Deputy Mayor and then Ashley, Councillor Ashley.
So rough ballpark figure, what would it cost us to put signage on every little subdivision?
I don't have enough information at that time to give you that.
Like
Uh,
10,000, 30,000?
I would probably say, depending on what you wanted, that's why I would say, if this is something council would like us to do, that's why the motion is worded to,
Okay,
to us
yeah,
to put
fair.
together a plan and get some quotes and a look for you to bring forward at budget time.
Councillor Ashley.
Now that the Brookside sign is gone, that's when I've really noticed, okay, Brookside's the only subdivision in Bruderheim with signage, and now that it's gone, that's when, oh, it's gone. If it- I think my personal opinion would be to create a beautiful flower bed, instead of spending more money. Our town is this big, just to identify the different subdivisions that make us a whole of Bruderheim. And just for looks, I guess, where would you place a sign for Sunset? I mean, West Woodlands, when you enter that subdivision, you could see putting a sign there. Definitely you can make space for that, but how Sunset is set out, where would you put a sign that would be accommodating? But yeah,
Thanks for
just my
that.
thoughts.
Councillor Ashley, Councillor Wayne, and then Deputy Mayor Judy.
I was gonna say, if the will is to have signs, then maybe we look at a like 3 or 5 year plan and have companies like Synovus or whatever to sponsor that sign, have their name big on it, and they provide the sign. But yeah, as for now, I don't think it's a pressing thing for us to do. But if there's a will of some people want to advertise their names, maybe that's an option.
Thanks, Councillor Wayne, Deputy Mayor Judy, and then Councillor George.
The only other question I have, how does our street signs play into this? Are they on this list at all?
That's part of our annual public works budget.
Just so that folks know where this came from, at an event recently, there was some residents that asked me, when is the Brookside sign going to get replaced? And that's where this request came from. Those folks were wondering, what's the plan? What's happening? So hence this. Councillor George.
Has there been any thought about putting out a district map where you would come into town and that would give all districts?
No, I've not come across that project yet, sir.
No, but what I'm saying is that way there, if you're coming in from the east or the west or whatever, that would cover all districts of the town. Yeah, and people read labels.
Thanks for that, Councillor George. That might
Just
be
a thought.
yeah, for another day, another motion, and the places do have addresses on, so folks can find where they live. But Councillor Ashley.
So if we decide that we're not going to replace the sign and we're just going to go forward with not having signage on the subdivision, we can put in place that we will fix that up so it looks better. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll task Public Works with
Okay.
making it look pretty.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ashley. Anybody else? Any questions? This particular little issue highlights for me at a higher level. So when that sign got removed, I don't even know when, last year, and then it took residents asking what's going on with this sign. Maybe we be proactive and sign gets removed and then we come forward with a plan to do something rather than waiting for residents to come forward and say, hey, that sign's missing. What's the plan, right?
Thank you, sir. We'll put it in our operations to make sure that we're looking after those things.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's just something to consider, right, going forward. Councillor Wayne?
So there hasn't been a motion put forward yet, has there?
No.
Okay.
Are you willing to put forward a motion?
With a bit of a change, yeah. Request administration to create a 5-year sign plan with anticipated annual budget and subdivision signage policy during the 3rd quarter or as they see fit. Also looking at sponsorships for that instead of town funding.
So then they would be reporting back with this plan to council. Is that the idea?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be done in the 3rd quarter. It says 3rd quarter, but I'm a 5-year plan. For
For the signs.
the sign, a 5-year plan just to look at over the next couple of years. And maybe there's some sponsorships out there that would like to put their name on a sign. We do it in the arena, we do it sports fields, we do it all over. Maybe there's an opportunity to for a name to be put on a subdivision sign.
Okay, so for back to Deputy Mayor Judy's question, for subsequent year planning, not necessarily pegged to a specific budget year.
No, I said a 5-year plan, so I figured 5 years too.
Okay. Thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Councillor Ashley?
Do you think that would take away from the subdivision? So it would be Shell Chemical Brookside instead of Brookside, just, like if we're gonna put a sign for a subdivision, it should be that it's Brookside, West Woodland, Sunset, Old Town, not Dow Chemical.
No, I was thinking more like you look in cities and stuff, they have like Qualico and then they have the subdivision, so it's their name just on the bottom, right? Like nothing. So that's what I was thinking.
Councillor Len and then Councillor George.
Well, it's absolutely foolish because as soon as you put a company's name there, they'll call it Dow subdivision. They'll call it Shell subdivision. And our town is not big enough and I don't see any purpose of any of signs, period. We have streets, people have street addresses that follow the town, but I think getting rid of the sign idea is completely is a good idea. Even spending time and money on a 5-year plan for something what is not necessary and putting especially company names up. It would just all of a sudden, that's Dow area, that's Shell area, and it doesn't cut it at all. I think just best thing, just let it go wash and we can survive without a signage.
Thank you, Councillor Len. Councillor George.
A lot of these signages that you see on developments, these are companies that have developed the areas. So they put their signs up. I have to agree a little bit with Leonard on this signage. I read an article where you go by the same sign four times and after the 5th time it's not there. With that being said, I don't think it would hurt to do a 5-year plan. See if we can get some free dollars to initiate this project and see what happens. I'll have to go along with the motion.
Question for administration. The time required by administration to come up with a plan like this, is there any kind of a feel for how long? Because I know you guys are pretty busy.
Sherry's been working on a sign plan for me since day 4. So we planned on having the draft ready for budget sessions this year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor George.
Just off my cuff. How many hours would you say that you put into investigation into this already,
Yep.
cost wise?
Maybe half an hour.
Okay, thanks. I think I'll call the question for the vote now. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? And the motion's not carried. Thank you. Good discussion. Great job. And we can carry on to the next one, 8.7. However, first, I believe that there's a motion for comfort. Councillor Dana, you want to?
I motion we take a comfort break for like 6.5 minutes.
Okay, we can live with 7. Okay, thanks. Anyone opposed to that motion? Call for a vote. All in favor? And it's carried. hold on with your motion and let her get the. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Len, you have a motion? Can you press the button and make your motion?
I make a motion that we come out of the break.
Thank you, Councillor Len. Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll call for a vote. All in favor? And the motion's carried. So we can carry on with 8.7 Canada Day activities.
So prior to COVID, Canada Day activities included a breakfast, well-attended parade, followed by games for younger children, face painting, bouncy houses, museums, activities for everybody. In the evening, we had cake and fireworks at the ag grounds. When COVID happened and then restrictions lifted, we noticed that participation in events changed and we had 8 to 10 entries in the parade and not many families attending. And larger centers had bigger events. So we saw our residents going to other municipalities. So in 2022, based on the cost for bringing in vendors for Canada Day and the number of large scale events occurring in the communities adjacent to us and changes in numbers of residents participating, our Canada Day event included a pancake breakfast, parades, street renaming, bouncy houses, games, music in the gazebo, with our events ending at 1:30, and then the families went to the other municipalities to participate. For the past 2 years, the fireworks were moved to the September event at a time when other communities were not offering them. And we also had a parade with our September event. So we are looking for direction for Canada Day activities in Bruderheim based on the following information. Canada Day falls on a Saturday, so a lot of folks will be going away. Last year, administration received feedback that having 2 parades and few entries at both should be reviewed. Lamont County will be having activities. Andrew will be having a full day of old-fashioned activities and games. Mundare has no activities during the day and having fireworks in the evening. Lamont is not having activities on Canada Day as their events at another time in July. And we don't know what Chipman is doing at this time. And our budget only allows for 1 set of fireworks per year. So Sherry has listed some options for council consideration. And her recommendation, one that I support, is that we continue to host half-day activities that include breakfast, bouncy house, and working with our other community groups for other activities.
Thank you for that, CAO. Phyllis, is there any questions of administration before we move on to a motion? Councillor Len, do you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
I make a motion that the administration continues with the plans to host a half-day activities that includes a breakfast, bouncy house, and other activities with other groups in the community.
Thank you for that motion. Any comments, questions, or concerns with that motion? Councillor Dana.
Well, is a parade considered an activity in the community?
I believe the intent would be to have the parade at the fall event.
Any further questions right now, Councillor Dana? No. Okay. Any other questions, comments from council? Councillor Dana and then Councillor George.
Can we not have a parade for both?
Just hold on.
Okay, pressing the button.
Councillor Dana, just repeat what you were saying.
Can we not have a parade for Canada Day and for the Family Fall Fest? I know just a lot of, even though people are going to be away, it maybe we won't have the turnout, but it really is just bringing in other communities. And if we only get like 10 floats, we only get 10 floats. There's going to be some kids that are going to be in town, and it is Canada Day. So I personally think a parade, even if it's not a crazy turnout, it doesn't cost as much to run a parade, would be a good idea.
Yep, thanks for that feedback, Councillor Dana. So we have a motion on the floor, and if that motion gets defeated, we can bring back another motion. So Deputy Mayor Judy, you wanted to interject?
more thoughts, just that it takes a lot of work to put a parade together, right? Doesn't matter if you have 10 floats or you have whatever. I think we really focus on September and get way more people out. Because I mean, we have Port Saskatchewan that does July 1st. We've got Andrew doing July 1st. Chipman is doing something July 1st. They're just not totally organized yet. So that's my thoughts. And because of the day and the long weekend, we're gonna have hardly anybody home.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor. Councillor George.
Do we not get grants for our July 1st?
We have money in our budget for July 1st, but it's not specified for any particular thing.
Well, Canada Day has been one of the things that we as Bruderheim residents have always participated in. More so than any event else that we've had. And are we watering down our Canada Day for the aspect of having a different event? Where I'm coming from is taking away the parade, you may as well take away just about everything. Because people come to the parade and then they stay after. Those who do come pretty much stayed for something else. The parade is our real draw as far as activities is. I would have to not agree with this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor George. Please remember to turn your mic off. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? I wanted to add my 10 cents worth. So not that long ago, 2014, Bruderheim had a Canada Day parade and day that was the talk of the region, not just Lamont County. So the amount of effort you put into something, then you're going to get a good result. And a lot of effort went into making that Canada Day something special. The Canada Day since COVID, not a lot of effort went in, and you've seen the results, not a lot of people attending. I would not be in favor of doing a parade for Canada Day this year because it'll be a flop because we're already well into June. We don't even have a month to plan and to invite people to come to a parade. So having said that, a lot of people, yes, some go camping, some not many, because the price of fuel, and then there's seniors and there's young families and people that work, they look forward to Canada Day fireworks. If nothing else that we do on Canada Day, we have the fireworks on Canada Day to celebrate Canada Day. But I would not be in favor of this motion, and I would look towards next year to reinstate Canada Day with the normal activities and plan it way ahead of time so that we can have a successful Canada Day. Because having less than a month to plan for a parade is a setup for failure. So that's my 10 cents worth. Councillor Len.
Well, previously we only had one event, that was July 1st. Now we have a big event in September, ball tournaments, everything else. And we have the animal people come and all the rest of that. We have to focus on one event. We can't have two events. The cost and the work for our staff in organizing all this stuff is just ridiculous. So if we have one event, we should put all our effort into one event. If we're going to have July 1st, which we have to compete with the whole community, all the other communities, then we cancel September. You have September, cancel July 1st. You can't have both. We're not big enough. We can't afford it.
Councillor Dana. Thank you, Councillor Len.
So just so you know, September is it's a joint town egg society. It's not just one group putting it on. So you can't really say that focus all on one because it is joint, like the egg society and yeah.
Thanks for that, Councillor Dana. I'd like to point out that in the past, there has been multiple parades that the Egg Society put on besides Canada Day, and it was successful. If folks remember the bank robbery that was at the ATV, that was a separate parade, and that was very successful. So it can be done. It's just, what do we want to have for our community? What does our residents want to have for our community? Maybe we might be best served to go along with a minimal Canada Day this year and do a survey and find out from our residents, what do they really want for Canada Day? Because we have, what, 7 people here, and we have almost 7 different ideas on it. So maybe if we look to the residents for some input, we might find, hey, they have 60% or 70% want to do this, and we're heading off in a direction that's opposite from that. I don't know, but I just wanted to put that out there. And somebody else had their hand up. Councilor Wayne.
I think in regards to this year, we run with the recommendation that's given. And we look forward for next year, start planning a little bit earlier and have, look at a candidate parade and get some hype out there and, do the 2 parades. But I think this year we run with the recommendation and, next year we look at it again.
Thanks for that, Councilor Wayne. Councilor George.
I have to agree with Councillor Wayne, but one of the things we have to look in the future if we're going to do this. Back in the days when we had not different groups within the town, well, we used to have pre-planning meetings. We'd have delegates from different groups come to these pre-planning meetings, and each group would take on a responsibility for the day. And that was very, very successful. We had people running ball tournaments. We had people running the concession booths and all them good things. It does take time and it takes planning, and that, like Mayor Huck says, go with the recommendation this year. And let's say we start planning in January next year.
Thanks for that, Councilor George. Just a thought also, we talked about grants and getting grants. If we want to have fireworks 2 times a year, we can get a grant from somebody to pay for that grant on the other time of the year that we don't have money for. That's a potential as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. And if there's no other comments, questions, or concerns, we'll call it to a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? Somebody has to vote. You can't not vote. It's either for or against. So
Maybe reread the.
Okay,
motion so we can think about it.
okay,
be sorry.
we'll run it.
I know.
Yeah,
that's not
well,
a lot.
Yeah, we'll run it again. We could also have the option of saying maybe a friendly amendment to the motion could be done, but at this time, we just have this motion. So are we ready for the vote now? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? And opposed? And the motion's carried. So thank you for good discussion, great democratic exercise. And we look forward to number 9, Mayor and Council Committee reports. We need a motion to receive the Mayor and Council Committee reports as information. Councilor Dan.
I motion that we receive the mayor and council committee reports as information.
Thank you for that, Councilor Dana. Any comments, questions? Do you have a question on the report? A comment? Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to give an update. We did have our very first youth committee meeting, and we did have 2 people attend the meeting. So it was only a half hour long, because there was only 2 of us, but we did come two youth. But we did come up with some ideas on what to do in the community. One of the young girls said for our next meeting, if I print off some posters, she'll put some posters up in Lamont School, just to get the word out. So you know what, for our first meeting, 2 is better than none. So yeah, that is my update on that.
Thank you, Councilor Dana. Any other comments, questions, or concerns with the motion on the Mayor and Council Committee reports as information? One thing to add for myself that I was not aware of, there's a Water Commission meeting tomorrow night that I will be attending. That's not in my report. So not hearing anything else, call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? And the motion's carried. Now we're looking for a motion to receive the Chief Administrator Officer report. Councilor Dana.
I motion that council receive the chief administrative officer report as information.
Thank you for that motion, Councilor Dana. Any thoughts, questions, or concerns, inquiries on the CAO report? Everybody liking the new format? Don't like the new format? Any feedback for CAO Phyllis? Deputy Mayor Judy.
Yeah, I like the new format. Gives us a little bit more update as to what's happening and that type of thing, and goals and what you're doing. Looks good.
Yep, positive. Thank you. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay. Calling for a vote. All those in favor, and the motion's carried. Now we move on to number 10, correspondence and information items. And at this time, I don't have anything. So we don't need a motion, but I do have thought about, we get emails sometimes about different things, and should that be included in the correspondence report, or did everybody gets copied on email, so we don't need it for in a council meeting?
It would be my recommendation, sir, that if a council member wanted it included as correspondence, please let us know. We have no problem at all including it. But I noticed that a lot of stuff goes to council, so my assumption is you don't need it included. But if there's something specific you would like our residents to know about, please ask me to include it for information.
Great, thank you for that recommendation. So we need a motion to go out of the public session then. Somebody, Councillor George. Oh, did I miss something? Was
The traffic safety.
I have Chief Administrative Officer report and then correspondence and information items. I don't. Oh, I thought that was all part of this. Yeah.
Those are part of the CAO report.
Okay, so I'll back up. Was there questions for CAO, Phyllis, on the CAO report? If there was, can you please email them to CAO Phyllis and copy council, and then we can answer them that way, so we don't have to revisit that motion that we just passed? Thoughts, concerns? Sorry, Councillor George, people wouldn't be able to hear you.
I have concerns with the draft traffic safety bylaw.
Okay. So how would we handle this administratively then?
Well, I don't know what the question or the concern is. I know we've gotten information back from the province today, and there is significant work that needs to be done to the bylaw.
Okay, but if there is a specific portion of that a motion wants to come from, we could do that motion now, right?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a motion, Councillor George?
Yeah, I'd
or
like to
Councillor
have
Wade?
some more clarification on this. Make a motion that administration come up with some more clarification around the off-highway bylaw. 032011.
Specifically, what kind of clarification are you looking for?
Our bylaws and what are the provincial bylaws? And enforcement.
We did have a copy of what was containing for the bylaw, so I'm not sure what else you are needing from that bylaw.
This bylaw that we got doesn't hold any water.
Okay, so maybe back up Councillor George and rethink that motion. Because I didn't accept that motion yet anyway, so.
Well,
or think about it and we'll go to Councillor Wayne and then come back to you.
okay.
Okay, Councillor Wayne.
So the transportation dangerous goods bylaw is going to be, is holding things up. Is that correct?
We have received information back from the province today.
Yeah.
So we anticipate bringing that forward to council at the next meeting on June 21st.
So June 21st. Supposedly this could all be finalized at that meeting.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and going back to you, Councillor George.
I would like to see a copy of the off-highway bylaw. That's going to be proposed.
So that's the bylaw that we made the first two readings on. That's the one. You want another paper copy of that?
Yes.
Okay. That's pretty simple request. Thank you. Can we move on to the next item on the agenda then? Yep, okay, great. So we're looking for a motion to go out of the public session. Somebody be willing to make that motion. Councillor Dana.
I motion that we go out of public session and into closed session.
Yeah, just one at a time. So thank you for that motion to go out of the public session. That's the way I'm sorry, CAO Phyllis.
I just want to clarify, sir, you just need to make a motion to go into closed and come out of closed.
Okay, because the previous CIO had us do a motion to go out of public session and then go into closed session.
No, you can break for a recess, you can reconvene, and then you can go into closed. But if you're just going from regular meeting into closed, you just need a motion to go
Okay,
into
great.
closed
So
session.
go ahead with your motion, Councillor Dan.
I motion that we go into closed session.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Dana. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council with that motion? Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, and we are now in closed session. crank that. I don't, yeah, we don't have any motions. We just need the adjournment motion that Councillor Wayne is famous for.
I make a motion to go home and the game is over, so I'll not watch the game, but motion to adjourn.
Thank you for that motion. All in favor? And the motion's carried. Great job, guys. Lots to go through.